Jiwon pressed her face against the transport window and watched the massive station grow larger. Galactic Academy Station Zenith 7 looked like a silver flower floating in space, its petals spreading out in perfect circles. She had seen pictures, but nothing prepared her for how big it actually was. Somewhere inside that structure, she would spend the next 2 years learning alongside aliens from across the galaxy. The pressure suit felt strange against her skin. It covered her from neck to toe in a thin, flexible material that looked almost invisible. The Academy officials said it was necessary. The suit would limit her strength and slow down her reflexes. Without it, she might accidentally hurt someone. Jiwon understood, but it still felt wrong to be wrapped up like something dangerous. "First time seeing the station?" asked the pilot, a four-armed creature with purple skin whose name Jiwon couldn't pronounce. "Yes," she said. "It's beautiful." The pilot made a clicking sound that might have been a laugh. "Wait until you see the inside. Humans always think everything is too small." Jiwon smiled but said nothing. She had read all the orientation materials 3 times. The station was built for species from low-gravity worlds. Most of the aliens were smaller than humans, with lighter bones and gentler movements. Earth was considered a death world, a planet so harsh that its inhabitants had evolved into something the rest of the galaxy found frightening. The transport docked with a soft thump. Jiwon grabbed her single bag and followed the other passengers into the station. The corridors were narrow and the ceiling lower than she expected. She had to duck slightly to avoid hitting her head. The air smelled sweet, like flowers mixed with something chemical. Artificial gravity pulled at her, but it felt lighter than Earth. She could probably jump twice as high here if she tried. A young woman waited near the entrance, holding a sign with Jiwon's name. She looked human, which made Jiwon's chest tighten with relief. "You must be Jiwon," the woman said, smiling warmly. "I'm Hana, I'll be your roommate." They shook hands carefully. Hana had the same cautious touch that all humans learned in space. Too firm a grip could break an alien's bones. "How long have you been here?" Jiwon asked as they walked. 2 months, Hana said. "Long enough to learn the important rules. Rule 1, never move fast. Rule 2, never raise your voice. Rule 3, if someone looks scared, you're doing something wrong." "That sounds exhausting." "It is," Hana admitted. "But it gets easier. Most aliens are nice once they realize you're not going to eat them." Their quarters were small but comfortable, 2 beds, 2 desks, a shared bathroom. The furniture looked delicate, like it might break if Jiwon sat down too hard. She tested her bed carefully. It held her weight but creaked in protest. "Everything here is made for species that weigh half what we do," Hana explained. "Be gentle with everything." Jiwon unpacked while Hana talked about the station. There were 200 students from 40 different species. Only 5 humans total. The classes were interesting but sometimes frustrating because the teachers assumed humans didn't understand complex ideas. The food in the cafeteria was bland because most species couldn't handle Earth spices. And everyone, absolutely everyone, was terrified of humans at first. "You'll get used to the stares," Hana said. "They watch us like we're dangerous animals." Which I guess we are to them. The first day of orientation felt like being in a zoo, except Jiwon was the exhibit. She sat in a large auditorium with the other new students. Most of them were small, colorful creatures with big eyes. They kept glancing at her and whispering. One student, an insectoid being with shimmering wings, actually changed seats to sit farther away. The orientation leader was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and no visible mouth. It spoke through a translator device that made its voice sound hollow. "Welcome to Zenith 7, it said. "Here we celebrate diversity. We learn from each other. We build a peaceful future together." Then came the safety lecture. It went on for an hour. Most of it was directed at Jiwon and the 2 other humans in the room. Don't grab anyone. Don't run in the corridors. Don't play physical sports with non-humans. Don't forget your pressure suit is the only thing keeping you from being a danger to everyone around you. The lecture made Jiwon feel like a loaded weapon. After orientation, Jiwon found her first class introduction to galactic history. She chose a seat near the back, trying to be invisible. It didn't work. The moment she sat down, a nearby student made a squeaking noise and moved 3 rows away. But one student didn't move. He was tall for an alien, with a hard shell covering his body and multiple eyes arranged around his head. He stared at Jiwon with what looked like contempt. "Deathworlder," he said, loud enough for others to hear. His translator made the word sound like an insult. Jiwon said nothing. Hana had warned her about this. Some aliens hated humans. They thought Earth's admission to the Galactic Council was a mistake. They believed humans were too violent, too aggressive, too primitive to join civilized society. The professor entered, a small, floating creature surrounded by bubbles of water. It began the lecture without acknowledging the tension in the room. Jiwan tried to focus on the lesson, but she could feel the shell-covered student watching her. His name, she learned later, was Velthar. He came from a wealthy family and attended Zenith 7 on his parents' money. During the lunch break, he made sure to walk past Jiwan's table. "I smell something primitive," he announced to his friends. They laughed, a series of clicking and chirping sounds. Hana grabbed Jiwan's arm before she could respond. "Not worth it," she whispered. "Trust me." That evening, Jiwan stood in front of the bathroom mirror and looked at her pressure suit. The material glowed faintly in the dim light. She pressed her hand against the wall, careful to use almost no force. Even being gentle, she could feel the wall bend slightly under her palm. Everything here was so fragile. Her tablet beeped with a new message. It was her class schedule. Mathematics, xenobiology, galactic law, and combat defense. The last one caught her attention. Combat defense was mandatory for all students. She read the description. Learn to protect yourself using non-lethal techniques approved for multi-species interaction. "Did you sign up for combat defense?" she asked Hana. Hana looked up from her desk, her expression worried. "Yeah, be careful in that class, Jiwon, really careful. Last term, a human student accidentally broke another student's arm during practice. It caused a huge problem. The human had to leave the academy." Jiwon nodded slowly. "I'll be careful." "I know you will," Hana said. "But sometimes being careful isn't enough. We're stronger than we realize, and they're weaker than we think. It's a bad combination." That night, Jiwon lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Through the wall, she could hear strange sounds from the other rooms. Alien students talking in languages her translator couldn't identify. The station hummed with the sound of air processors and gravity generators. Everything felt foreign. She thought about Velthar and his hatred. She thought about the students who moved away from her in fear. She thought about the pressure suit that marked her as dangerous. She had come here to learn, to represent humanity, to prove that Earth belonged in the galactic community. But already she wondered if it was possible. How could she prove humans were peaceful when everyone expected her to be violent? How could she make friends when her very presence scared them? How could she be herself when she had to constantly hold back, move slowly, speak quietly, and apologize for existing? Outside her window, stars shone against the black of space. Earth was somewhere out there, impossibly far away. Jiwon closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would be another day of walking on eggshells, of being the dangerous Deathworlder in a station full of fragile beings. She just hoped she could make it through the term without breaking anything. Or anyone. 3 weeks at Zenith 7 taught Jiwon that excellence meant nothing if people feared you. She had perfect scores in all her classes. Her professors praised her work. But in the cafeteria, students still cleared a space around her table. In the corridors, they pressed themselves against the walls when she walked past. She had become very good at being lonely. The only bright spot was Taemin. She met him in the library on a Tuesday afternoon. He was human, thin and tall, with tired eyes that suggested he didn't sleep enough. He had dropped a stack of data tablets, and Jiwon helped him pick them up. "Thanks," he said. "I'm Taemin. Engineering track. Jiwon. General studies." They got coffee at the station's cafe, a tiny place that served drinks too weak for human taste, but strong enough to kill most aliens. Taemin had been at Zenith 7 for 8 months. He knew things Hana didn't talk about. "There was an incident last year," Taemin explained, stirring his coffee slowly. "A human student named Doyen was playing basketball in the recreation area. He went up for a shot and came down on another student's foot. Complete accident. But the other student's leg broke in 3 places. That's terrible," Jiwon said. "It gets worse." Doyen was expelled. The other student's family demanded compensation. Earth's council delegation had to pay a huge fine. Now there are new rules. Humans can't play sports with aliens. We can't even exercise in the common gym areas. We have our own room, with equipment that can handle our strength. Jiwon thought about her pressure suit, about the constant warnings, about the way Velthar looked at her like she was a monster waiting to attack. "They really think we're dangerous." "We are dangerous," Taemin said quietly. "That's the problem. We don't mean to be, but we are. Our bones are denser. Our muscles are stronger. Our reflexes are faster. Even with the pressure suits limiting us, we're still more powerful than 70% of the species here. They have every reason to be scared. But we're people too, Jiwan protested. We have feelings. We don't want to hurt anyone, I know. But try explaining that to someone whose entire species has never known a predator. They look at us and see teeth and strength and violence. They can't help it. It's instinct. Combat defense class started on Thursday. The training facility was large and padded, with soft floors and walls that absorbed impact. 20 students gathered in a loose circle around Instructor Prilmoth, an elderly alien who looked like a salamander that had learned to walk upright. Its skin was mottled green and orange, and it moved with surprising grace. Combat is an art, Prilmoth said through its translator. Not about hurting others, about protecting yourself, about ending conflict without violence. We practice gentle techniques, safe techniques, techniques that work for all bodies. Jiwan watched as Prilmoth demonstrated a basic hold. It was slow and careful, more like dancing than fighting. The alien students followed along, their movements uncertain but earnest. When it was Jiwan's turn, everyone stopped to watch. Remember your strength, Prilmoth said to her. Remember your danger. Jiwan nodded. She had heard this warning so many times it had lost meaning. She practiced the hold with her partner, a small furry creature named something that translated as soft wind. The creature trembled the entire time, its eyes wide with fear. Jiwan moved as slowly as possible, using almost no pressure at all. Softwind still whimpered. Good, Prilmoth said. You show control. This is important. Across the training room, Velthar was practicing with a partner, but he kept looking at Jiwan, his multiple eyes tracking her movements. During the water break, he made sure to speak loud enough for everyone to hear. I heard humans used to fight each other for sport, he said. Is that true, Deathworlder? Did you people kill each other for entertainment? Jiwan took a slow drink and didn't answer. Hana had taught her that silence was safer than argument. I thought so, Velthar continued. Savages, barbarians, and the council let you join anyway. It's shameful. That's enough, Prilmoth said, but its voice carried no real authority. Velthar just smiled, if that's what the expression on his face meant. After class, Jiwan found Taemin waiting outside. He had a data tablet and a worried expression. I need to show you something, he said. They went to his quarters, a small room filled with equipment and half-finished projects. Taemin pulled up a file on his main screen. I've been tracking incidents involving humans, he explained. Not just here, but across all the mixed species stations and ships. There have been 47 accidents in the past year. Most of them were genuine mistakes, but 3 of them were suspicious. Suspicious how? Someone provoked the human first, made them angry or scared, then claimed the human attacked unprovoked. In all 3 cases, the human was expelled and faced legal consequences. But the other party faced nothing. Jiwan felt cold. You think someone is setting up humans? I think some people want us to fail, Taemin said. They want to prove we don't belong in the galactic community. And the best way to do that is to make us look violent and uncontrolled. Velthar, Jiwan said. Taemin nodded. Maybe. His family lost a major trade contract to a human corporation 2 years ago. They blame Earth for their financial problems. He might be looking for revenge. So what do I do? Be more careful than careful, Taemin said. Don't let him provoke you. Don't react to anything he says. And especially be careful in combat defense. That's where most accidents happen. The next week, Prilmoth announced the practical examination. All students would participate in full contact sparring. Not violent, the instructor emphasized, controlled, safe, but realistic enough to test their skills. You will be paired by weight class, Prilmoth explained. This ensures fair matches. The examination is in 2 weeks. Practice hard. Learn well. Show respect for your partner. Jiwan checked the weight class assignments that night. Her heart sank. She was in the same category as Velthar and 3 other students. The probability of being matched with him was 20%. Not certain, but possible. Maybe you'll get lucky, Hana said, trying to sound optimistic. But Jiwan didn't feel lucky. She felt like a storm was coming. The days before the examination passed too quickly. Jiwan practiced every evening in the human-only gym, working through the movements Prilmoth had taught. The techniques felt wrong to her. Too slow, too gentle. Her body knew how to fight from years of martial arts on Earth. But that kind of fighting would kill someone here. She had to forget everything she knew and learn to move like she was made of glass. Taemin visited her on the night before the exam. He brought 2 containers of actual Earth food, smuggled from the human supply ship. Real kimchi, real rice, real flavors that didn't taste like wet paper. For courage, he said. They ate together in silence. Ji-won thought about tomorrow, about the possibility of facing Velthar in the practice ring. She thought about his hatred and his family's grudge. She thought about Taemin's research on suspicious incidents. If something happens, she said slowly. If there's an accident. There won't be, Taemin interrupted. You're too careful, too controlled. You'll do fine. But his eyes said he was worried too. The examination day arrived with clear skies visible through the station's viewports. Ji-won put on her pressure suit and checked the settings 3 times. Maximum restriction. Minimum strength. She made her way to the training facility, where other students were already gathering. Prilmoth stood at the center of the room with a data tablet. The sparring pairs were listed there. Random selection, the instructor had promised. Fair and unbiased. Ji-won joined the crowd around the display, looking for her name. There it was. Match 7. Ji-won versus Velthar. She heard him laugh, a clicking sound full of satisfaction. When she looked up, he was staring at her with all his eyes. His expression was unmistakable. He had known this would happen. Somehow he had arranged it. Good luck, Deathworlder, he said. Try not to hurt me too badly. Around them, other students whispered. Everyone knew about the tension between humans and Velthar's species. Everyone knew this match would be difficult. Ji-won saw Hana in the crowd, her face pale with worry. She saw Taemin near the door, already recording with his tablet. Evidence just in case. Prilmoth called the first match. 2 small aliens circled each other carefully, their movements slow and deliberate. The match ended in 90 seconds with a gentle pin. Polite applause followed. The second match was similar. So was the third. Then it was time for match 7. Ji-won stepped onto the padded floor. Velthar entered from the opposite side. They faced each other across 3 meters of empty space. Prilmoth reviewed the rules. Pin or submission ends the match. No strikes to vulnerable areas. Respect your opponent. Show control. Begin, Prilmoth said. Velthar smiled. Ji-won took a breath and prepared for whatever was coming. The storm had arrived. The training hall went quiet. 20 students watched as Ji-won and Velthar circled each other on the padded floor. The silence felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. Ji-won kept her hands low and open, non-threatening, just like Prilmoth had taught them. Velthar moved with confidence, his shell-covered body clicking softly with each step. Velthar struck first. His arm shot out in a grab that Ji-won easily sidestepped. Even with her pressure suit limiting her speed, she was faster than him. His attacks felt like they were moving through water. She could see each movement coming seconds before it arrived. Stand still, Deathworlder, Velthar hissed. Or are you afraid to actually fight? Ji-won said nothing. She moved backward, keeping distance between them. Her training from Earth screamed at her to counterattack, to use his momentum against him to end this quickly. But she pushed those instincts down. She had to let him tire himself out. She had to win without actually fighting. 2 minutes passed. Velthar grew frustrated. His movements became wilder, less controlled. He lunged at Ji-won's legs, trying to tackle her. She stepped aside, and he sprawled on the padding. Laughter rippled through the watching students. Not at Ji-won, at Velthar. His shell flushed darker, a sign of anger in his species. He stood up and brushed himself off, his eyes fixed on Ji-won with pure hatred. You think you're better than me? He said. You think being strong makes you superior? I don't want to fight you, Ji-won replied quietly. We can stop now. Call it a draw. Never, Velthar spat. He came at her again, faster this time, his arms reaching for any grip he could find. Ji-won blocked and dodged, her movements minimal and efficient. She was starting to understand the rhythm of this kind of fighting. It wasn't about winning. It was about not losing. It was about being so defensive that your opponent gave up or made a mistake. 4 minutes into the match, Velthar changed tactics. He stopped trying to grab her body and instead went for her arms. His fingers closed around her wrist. The grip was weak by human standards, but Ji-won let him have it. She didn't pull away. She just stood there waiting to see what he would do. Got you, Velthar said, satisfaction in his voice. He pulled her toward him. trying to use her own weight to throw her off balance. It didn't work. Jiwon weighed more than him, and even limited by her suit, her strength exceeded his. She stood firm, unmoved. Velthar pulled harder. Still nothing. The watching students began to murmur. This wasn't how the match was supposed to go. Velthar was clearly weaker. Everyone could see it now. He couldn't move Jiwon even a centimeter. His pride was being destroyed in front of the entire class. Prilmoth raised a hand, about to call the match. But Velthar saw the movement. He knew he was about to lose through forfeit. And losing to a human was unacceptable. That's when he made his decision. Jiwon saw it happen in slow motion. Velthar released her wrist and lunged forward, his arms reaching up. His hands closed around her neck, both hands squeezing. In Quillarian combat, this was called a throne hold. It was a dominant position meant to show complete control over an opponent. For them, it was theatrical, a finishing move that looked impressive. For Jiwon, it was something else entirely. The moment his hands touched her throat, everything changed. Her vision narrowed. Her heart rate spiked. Deep in her brain, ancient human instincts woke up screaming. Something was choking her. Something was trying to kill her. She had to escape. She had to survive. The pressure suit's limiters fought against her adrenaline surge. Her strength, normally restricted to safe levels, pushed against the restrictions. The suit's fabric began to strain. Warning lights flickered across its surface, visible only to her. "Submit," Velthar was saying. "Submit, Deathworlder. You lose." But Jiwon wasn't hearing him anymore. Her hands moved on pure instinct, following patterns drilled into her muscles by years of training on Earth. Her fingers found purchase on Velthar's thorax, the hard shell that protected his vital organs. In human grappling, this would be a collar grip, a standard counter to a chokehold. Safe. Controlled. Except Velthar wasn't human. Jiwon's body executed the counter automatically. She pulled him forward while twisting her hips, a movement designed to break a choke and reverse the position. On Earth, against a human opponent, the other person would tap out immediately. The pressure on their neck would be uncomfortable, and they'd submit rather than risk injury. But Velthar's body wasn't built for this kind of force. The sound was terrible, a sharp crack that echoed through the training hall like breaking wood. Velthar's exoskeletal collarbone, the structural support that connected his upper limbs to his torso, shattered under the torque of Jiwon's movement. He dropped instantly, his voice rising in a shriek that needed no translation. Pain, pure, terrible pain. Jiwon stumbled backward, her hands empty, her mind suddenly clear. The adrenaline drained away, replaced by cold horror. Velthar was on the ground, curling around himself, making sounds that no living thing should make. A thin crack ran across his shell, visible even from where she stood. The training hall erupted. Students screamed. Some ran for the door. Others pressed themselves against the walls as far from Jiwon as possible. Prilmoth was shouting commands, but the translator was overwhelmed by too many voices. Medical teams rushed in within seconds. They surrounded Velthar with equipment Jiwon didn't recognize. A glowing field appeared around his body, some kind of emergency stasis. The shrieking stopped, replaced by the hum of medical devices. Jiwon stood frozen in the center of the padded floor. Her hands were shaking. She looked down at them like they belonged to someone else. These hands had just broken another living being. These hands had done exactly what everyone feared humans would do. "Don't move." The voice came from behind her. She turned slowly and saw two security officers. They weren't human. They weren't even humanoid. They looked like floating orbs of metal, with mechanical arms extending from their bodies. Those arms held devices that were definitely weapons. "I didn't mean to," Jiwon said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Distant, shocked. "He grabbed my throat. I just reacted. I didn't mean to." "You need to come with us," one of the officers said. Its voice was flat, emotionless. "Do not resist. Any resistance will be considered an attack," Jiwon wanted to explain. She wanted to tell them about the chokehold, about the instinct, about how her body moved without her permission, but the words wouldn't come. She just nodded. As the security officers escorted her out, she saw faces in the crowd. Hana looked devastated, tears running down her cheeks. Taemin had his tablet out, still recording, his expression grim. Other students looked terrified. They pressed against the walls as she passed, like she might suddenly attack them too. And there, being loaded onto a medical transport, was Velthar. The stasis field surrounded him, but she could see the crack in his shell. She had done that. She had broken him. No matter the circumstances, no matter the reason, she had proven everyone right. Humans were dangerous. Humans couldn't be trusted. Humans didn't belong here. The security officers took her to a small room with no windows. They told her to wait. They left her alone with her thoughts, which was somehow worse than any punishment they could have given her. Jiwan sat in a chair that was too small and too fragile. She kept her hands on her knees, afraid to touch anything else. Her pressure suit was still showing warning lights, evidence that it had been pushed beyond its designed limits. She had been so careful for 3 weeks, so controlled, so gentle, and in 3 seconds she had destroyed everything. Time passed. She didn't know how much. Eventually, the door opened. A human woman entered, wearing formal clothes that marked her as someone important. She was older than Jiwan, maybe 40, with gray streaks in her black hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. "I'm Ambassador Minji," the woman said. "I represent Earth's interests at Zenith 7. I'm here to help you." "I hurt him," Jiwan said. The words felt like glass in her throat. "I broke his collarbone." "Everyone saw it." Minji sat down across from her. "I know, I've seen the security footage. All of it from the moment the match started." "Then you know it was my fault." He grabbed my neck and I reacted without thinking. I should have controlled myself. I should have— "Stop," Minji interrupted. Her voice was firm but not unkind. "What you should have done was tap out the moment he put hands on your throat. That would have been the safe choice, the diplomatic choice. But you're human, Jiwan. Your body has spent millions of years learning how to respond to threats. You can't just turn that off because you're in space." "But I hurt him," Jiwan repeated. "Yes," Minji agreed. "You did. And now we have to deal with the consequences. Velthar's family is already demanding your expulsion. They want you charged with assault. They want Earth sanctioned for sending dangerous individuals into civilized space. This is going to become a major incident." Jiwan closed her eyes. She had come to Zenith 7 to learn, to make friends, to represent humanity well. Instead, she had become exactly what they all feared. "A Deathworlder who couldn't control her violence. I'm sorry," she whispered. "Save your apologies," Minji said. "You're going to need them for the tribunal. They're convening tomorrow to investigate what happened. Until then, you're confined to quarters. Your pressure suit will be inspected. Your records will be reviewed. Everything you've done since arriving up—" House arrest felt like living in a cage. Jiwan spent 3 days in her quarters, watching through her window as station life continued without her. Students walked to classes. Ships docked and departed. The galaxy kept turning while she waited to learn her fate. Hana brought her meals and news from outside. The incident was everywhere. Every student knew about it. Every teacher had an opinion. The galactic news networks picked up the story within hours. Human attack student in unprovoked assault read most of the headlines. Some were worse. Deathworlder violence at academy. Earth student breaks alien's bones. None of them mentioned that Velthar had grabbed her neck first. "Taman is gathering evidence," Hana told her on the second day. "He has the security footage from 6 different angles. He has medical records. He's even trying to access the station's computer logs." "Why would he need computer logs?" Jiwan asked. "He thinks Velthar rigged the sparring pairs. The random selection shouldn't have put you two together. The probability was too low. If he can prove Velthar planned this, it changes everything. But could Taman prove it? And even if he could, would anyone care? Jiwan had still broken Velthar's collarbone. That fact remained unchanged, regardless of who started the fight. On the 4th day, Ambassador Minji returned. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept since the incident. "The tribunal convenes tomorrow morning," she said. 5 judges from 5 different species. They'll hear testimony, review evidence, and make a decision. This isn't a criminal trial. It's an academic disciplinary hearing. But the consequences are just as serious. What will happen to me? Best case? You're found not guilty and allowed to continue your studies with additional restrictions. Worst case? Expulsion and formal charges. The middle ground is some kind of compromise that makes everyone unhappy. What about Velthar? Minji's expression hardened. He's recovered physically. The medical team repaired his collarbone. But he's playing the victim perfectly. His family has hired advocates. They're demanding full punishment. They want to make an example of you. So I lose no matter what? Not necessarily, Minji said. Truth matters. We just have to make sure the tribunal sees the complete truth, not just the parts that support their prejudices. The hearing took place in a large chamber deep in the station's administrative section. Jiwan entered to find 5 judges sitting behind a curved table. Each represented a different species. Each looked at her with expressions she couldn't read. Were they curious? Afraid? Angry? She couldn't tell. The chamber filled with observers. Students, teachers, station officials. Jiwan saw Hana and Taemin sitting together near the back. She saw Velthar on the opposite side, his shell still showing the repair lines from his injury. He sat with 3 adults who must be his family. They all stared at Jiwan with obvious hatred. The lead judge, a floating jellyfish-like creature surrounded by protective water, called the hearing to order. This tribunal will determine if student Jiwan acted with excessive force during a sanctioned combat exercise, it said through a translator. We will hear testimony, review evidence, and render judgment. Student Jiwan, do you understand the charges? Yes, Jiwan said. Her voice sounded small in the large chamber. Do you admit to causing injury to student Velthar? I do, but it was self-defense. He grabbed my throat. I reacted instinctively. Murmurs ran through the crowd. The judges consulted with each other in languages Jiwan couldn't understand. We will now hear testimony, the lead judge announced. Velthar went first. He moved to a platform in the center of the chamber, making sure everyone could see his injuries. The repair lines on his shell looked worse under the bright lights. I was practicing normal combat techniques, he said. The human was avoiding engagement. I attempted a throne hold, a standard move from my people's martial tradition. It's non-lethal, meant to establish dominance. The human responded with savage violence. She grabbed me with terrible strength and broke my body. I thought I would die. His voice cracked on the last words. Some observers made sympathetic sounds. Jiwan wanted to scream. He was lying, or at least telling a version of the truth that made him innocent and her guilty. Did you know the throne hold would frighten a human? Asked one of the judges. No, Velthar said. I assumed she had trained for multi-species interaction. I assumed she could control herself. I was wrong. Humans are too dangerous for civilized combat. The next witness was Prilmoth, the combat instructor. The old alien looked uncomfortable on the platform. Describe what you saw, the lead judge instructed. The match proceeded normally for 4 minutes. Prilmoth said. Student Velthar attempted multiple techniques, all unsuccessful. Then he executed a throat hold. Student Jiwan responded immediately. The countermove was technically correct for human martial arts, but the force was inappropriate for the opponent's physiology. Did you intervene? I was about to call the match when the incident occurred. It happened very quickly. Too quickly for me to prevent. In your professional opinion, did student Jiwan intend to cause injury? Prilmoth hesitated. I cannot speak to her intent. Only her actions. And her actions resulted in serious harm. Ambassador Minji stood up. May I question the witness? The judges conferred. Proceed, Minji approached Prilmoth. Instructor, you teach combat to multiple species. Are humans naturally stronger than most of your students? Yes. Are their reflexes faster? Yes. When something grabs a human's throat, cutting off air, what is the natural response? I don't understand the question. Let me be clearer, Minji said. If someone chokes a human, their body will fight to escape. This is biological imperative. They cannot think their way out of it. The panic response is automatic. Did you teach students about this human trait? Prilmoth was silent. Did you warn student Velthar that throat holds might trigger a survival response in his human opponent? The curriculum doesn't cover species-specific vulnerabilities in that detail, Prilmoth admitted. So you put 2 students together, one with instincts to choke and one with instincts to escape choking, and gave them no warning about how those instincts might conflict? I believed the pressure suits would prevent serious injury, but they didn't, Minji said. Because you can't suppress millions of years of evolution with a piece of clothing. Thank you, instructor. No more questions. Hana testified next. She described Jiwan's careful behavior over 3 weeks. How she moved slowly, how she spoke quietly, how she avoided conflict at every opportunity. Her testimony painted Jiwan as someone desperately trying to fit in, not as a violent aggressor. Then came Taemin. He walked to the platform carrying a data tablet, and Jiwan's heart lifted with hope. I have evidence, Taemin announced. The sparring pairs were not randomly selected. Someone accessed the assignment system 3 days before the examination and changed the code. The alteration ensured that student Jiwan would be paired with student Velthar. The chamber erupted. Judges called for order. Velthar stood up, shouting denials. His family looked shocked. Taman continued calmly. I have access logs showing someone from student Velthar's dorm section accessed the system using stolen credentials. I have communication records showing Velthar researching human psychology, specifically human response to choking. And I have this. He displayed an image on the chamber's main screen. It showed Velthar's search history, how to provoke humans, human fear responses, what makes humans violent. He planned this, Taman said. He wanted an incident. He wanted to make humans look dangerous. He knew exactly what he was doing when he grabbed her throat. Velthar was screaming now. His family tried to silence him, but he pushed them away. Lies, all lies. The human is making this up. But the evidence was there. The judges spent 2 hours reviewing Taman's data. The computer logs didn't lie. Someone had rigged the system. Someone had researched how to provoke a human, and that someone had access credentials that pointed directly to Velthar's dormitory. The chamber emptied while the judges deliberated. Ji-won sat with Hana and Taman in a waiting area outside. Thank you, she said to Taman. How did you find all that? I've been tracking anti-human sentiment since I arrived, he said. I knew someone would eventually try something. I just didn't know it would be this obvious. Velthar isn't very smart. He left a trail a child could follow. 3 hours passed. Finally, they were called back. The lead judge looked tired. This tribunal has reached a decision. The evidence shows that student Velthar manipulated the sparring assignments and deliberately provoked student Ji-won. However, this does not excuse the level of force used in response. Student Ji-won should have shown greater control. Ji-won's heart sank. Therefore, we find student Ji-won not guilty of assault. However, we find her negligent in species-appropriate response. Her punishment is mandatory additional restraint protocols and weekly psychological evaluations. Student Velthar is censured for match fixing and receives academic probation. Both students may continue their education. The gavel came down. The decision was final. Ji-won had won, but it felt like losing. She was innocent but still punished. Velthar was guilty but barely faced consequences. The compromise satisfied no one. Ambassador Minji found her afterward. It could have been worse, could it? Ji-won asked. I'm not expelled, but I'm marked as dangerous. 3 months after the incident, Ji-won walked through the station corridors and noticed something had changed. Students still watched her, but the fear in their eyes had shifted to something else. Curiosity, maybe, or respect. She wasn't sure which, but it felt different than before. The mandatory psychological evaluations were annoying but harmless. Every week she sat with a Quellan therapist who asked questions about her feelings and her control. Every week she gave honest answers. Yes, she still felt guilty about hurting Velthar. No, she didn't think she could have acted differently in that moment. Yes, she was learning to recognize her triggers better. The additional restraint protocols were worse. Her pressure suit now had an even stricter limiter. Moving felt like walking through honey. Simple tasks took twice as long, but she adapted. Humans were good at adapting. Her classes continued. Mathematics was straightforward. Galactic law was fascinating. Xenobiology taught her why different species thought so differently. And combat defense had been completely restructured. Instructor Prilmoth retired after the incident. The new instructor was a being made entirely of crystalline structures that could shift its form at will. It announced on the first day that combat classes would now be species segregated for primary training. Humans would train with humans. Fragile species would train together. Only in advanced classes would they mix, and only with extensive safety preparation. We learned from the incident, the instructor said. We cannot expect species with different capabilities to train together without understanding those differences. This is not segregation. This is safety. Ji-won trained with the other 4 humans on the station. It felt good to move at normal speed, to not constantly worry about breaking something. They practiced Earth martial arts and shared stories about the challenges of living among aliens. For the first time since arriving, Ji-won felt like she belonged somewhere. But the real change came from an unexpected source. His name was Daeun, and he was of Relon. His species looked like small dinosaurs covered in colorful feathers. He approached Ji-won in the library one evening, carrying a stack of books about Earth. "Excuse me," he said, his voice nervous through the translator. "Are you the student from the incident?" Ji-won tensed. "Yes, I've been reading about humans," Daeun continued. "Your planet. Your evolution. Your biology. It's fascinating. You come from a world with predators everywhere. You had to become strong to survive. Is that correct? That's part of it, G1 said carefully. I have questions. Many questions. Would you be willing to talk? I promise I'm not scared. Well, I'm a little scared. But I'm more curious than scared. Something about his honesty made Ji-won smile. Sure, I can answer questions. They talked for 2 hours. Daeun wanted to know everything. What did Earth predators look like? How did humans hunt before technology? Why were human teeth shaped that way? How fast could a human really run without the pressure suit? Ji-won answered as best she could, and Daeun listened with intense focus. My world has no large predators, Daeun explained. The biggest dangerous animal is the size of your hand. When I first learned about Earth, I had nightmares. But then I thought if humans survive that world, they must be incredibly smart. Strong, yes, but also clever. You don't survive a death world with just strength. We're not monsters, Ji-won said quietly. I know, Daeun said. That's why I wanted to talk to you. To understand, many students fear humans because they don't understand. Fear comes from ignorance. Knowledge removes fear. Daeun became her friend. He introduced her to other students who were curious rather than afraid. A small group formed, meeting weekly to discuss Earth and human culture. Ji-won showed them pictures of Earth animals. She explained human sports and art. She cooked human food in the small kitchen and let them taste carefully prepared samples. Hana joined these meetings, as did Taemin. Together they created something new. Not a human group existing separately from aliens, but a mixed group learning from each other. This should have happened from the start, Taemin said one evening. Instead of hiding what makes us different, we should be sharing it. Humans are part of the galactic community now. Everyone needs to learn what that means. The meetings grew. 10 students became 20. 20 became 30. The station administration noticed. At first, they seemed concerned. But when no incidents occurred, when students left the meetings excited rather than afraid, the attitude changed. Instructor Prilmoth visited one meeting despite being retired. The old alien sat quietly in the back and listened, as Ji-won explained why humans smile to show happiness when many species interpret showing teeth as aggression. Afterward, Prilmoth approached her. I owe you an apology. I taught combat for 30 years. I thought I understood all species, but I never truly understood humans. I put you in an impossible situation. You didn't know, Ji-won said. I should have known. That is the job of an instructor, to know. I failed you and student Velthar both. His hatred, your instincts, and my ignorance combined to create disaster. I am sorry. The apology meant more than Ji-won expected. She accepted it with gratitude. Velthar, meanwhile, had become invisible. He attended classes but spoke to no one. His friends had abandoned him after the truth came out. His family's political maneuvering had backfired. Instead of making humans look dangerous, the incident had exposed their own prejudice and manipulation. Velthar walked the corridors alone and no one seemed to care. Ji-won saw him sometimes and felt complicated emotions. Anger at what he'd tried to do. Pity for how completely he'd failed. Guilt for the injury she'd caused regardless of circumstances. She considered approaching him but never found the right words. Then one day he approached her. It was in the library late at night when few students were around. Ji-won was studying for exams. Velthar appeared at her table without warning. I need to say something, he said. His translator made his voice flat, but she could hear something underneath. Shame, maybe. Ji-won closed her book and waited. I hated humans before I met you, Velthar said. My family taught me to hate. They said Earth took opportunities from us. They said humans were violent and primitive. I believed them. I wanted to prove they were right. So I planned the incident. I researched your psychology. I knew grabbing your throat would trigger a response. I wanted you to hurt me so everyone would see how dangerous humans are. He paused, his shell shifting color in a way that suggested distress. I got what I wanted. You hurt me. But then everyone learned it was my fault. Now my family disowns me. My friends abandon me. I will leave the academy at term end because I cannot stay here with this shame. I came to say I am sorry. You did not deserve what I did. You tried to be peaceful and I punished you for it. I am sorry. Ji-won studied him for a long moment. The anger she'd carried for months felt tired now, worn out from holding it. I broke your collarbone, she said. Even though you provoked me, I still hurt you. I'm sorry too. You defended yourself. That is not wrong. Maybe. But I wish neither of us had been hurt. Velthar made a sound that might have been agreement. What you are doing now, these meetings. Teaching others about humans. This is good. This is what I should have done instead of hating. I hope you continue. I will, Jiwon said. Velthar left. She never saw him again. She heard later that he transferred to a different academy, one where humans hadn't yet integrated. She wondered if he would spread hatred there, or if he'd learned something from his failure. She hoped for the latter but suspected the former. The term ended. Exams happened. Jiwon passed everything with high marks. Her professors wrote excellent recommendations. The station administration, seeing the success of her cultural meetings, asked her to make them official. We want to establish a formal program, Administrator Whale told her, a tall being made of flowing liquid held in a transparent suit. Cross-species cultural education. You would help design the curriculum. Teach other students how to understand human biology, psychology, and culture. Paid position, of course, and it would count toward your degree requirements. You want me to stay? Jiwon asked, surprised. We want you to lead, Whale corrected. The incident taught us something important. Integration requires effort from all sides. Humans must learn about others, yes, but others must also learn about humans. You can build that bridge, Jiwon accepted. She spent the break between terms working with educators from multiple species. They created a new program called Understanding Deathworlds. It covered not just humans but any species from high-gravity, high-danger planets. Biology, psychology, culture, and practical interaction strategies. When the new term started, 60 students enrolled in the first course. Jiwon stood before them on the first day, nervous but determined. This class will challenge your assumptions, she told them. You'll learn things that seem strange or frightening. But remember, different doesn't mean wrong. Humans are strong, yes. We evolved as predators, yes. But we're also social, creative, and capable of great kindness. We don't want to hurt anyone. We want to be part of this community. And that starts with understanding. The semester was hard work. Some students struggled with concepts that seemed alien to them. The idea that humans formed emotional bonds through physical combat confused many species. The fact that humans found danger exciting seemed insane to those from peaceful worlds. But